Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my new studio. I'm broadcasting today from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And I'm in my studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Hello.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast and also checking on the chat room. The chat room is live, so if you have any comments or you have questions, send me a little comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Here on my page, you see my website, everettswatercolors.com, right here at the bottom of my screen here. Now off here to the right is my QR code. And that QR code will take you right to my website, directly to my website. Now my website, when you go into the website, let me I put up another screen here I wanted you to take a look at. When you go to my website, you'll see up here the navigation bar up here to the top left of the page. You'll see I have several things on there. I have the Live Classroom 2023. That's where you'll find the replay of the video for today, for example. But you'll see all the replays of the whole year since the beginning of January. And I also have another page where you can go back to 2022 and see all the videos from that year. Simply Drawing with Everett. That's a page where I have my videos from my drawing. Little drawing get together I have at 6:30 p.m. today, Eastern Standard Time. And my Fun with Watercolors, I have, that's where I'm going to have the photograph and my drawing for today's program. And you can paint along and you can submit that to my Facebook page. The link to my Facebook page will be at the bottom of the video today. I'll give you the video at the end of the program. I'll have in the description below, I will have a link to the Fun with Watercolors page on Facebook. So today I'm going to today we're going to go over what I call shapes and shadows, and I think you'll find it very interesting. Let me go to my overhead projector here and show you some of my preparation steps. So first thing I do is photograph. This is a still life that I did here in the studio, and what I've done is I've got a couple objects here. I got a frying pan, I got a glass, and I got a jug back here in the background. But I changed the shape of these, and you'll see that in a minute in my drawing. I changed the shape of these particular items. And then I also have a picture here of an old tree, and I'll show you. We'll get down to that when I talk to you about shadows and so forth and texture. But what I did here is I redrew this over. I took the subject matter, the pan, the jug, and the glass, and I changed it. And you can see here in my drawing, I made the jug a little bit different, made it a little bit taller, and I shrunk the glass down into a smaller glass into a different shape. Okay, I thought this would be different. So this drawing now is on my Fun with Watercolors page, which I showed you in the beginning there, on my website. And you can download this and paint along with me after you see today's program. And over here is did a little drawing of a stump, if I'll get to that today later on. All right, so this is a drawing that's on my Fun with Watercolor page, and this little diagram here showing you where the still life came from. I'll put that aside. Okay, then I got my drawing here on my watercolor paper. This is a 140-pound Gemini watercolor paper. Measures, it's a quarter sheet. It measures 15 inches long and 11 inches high. 15 by 11. Okay, and I've got it here on my incredible board. And over here in my palette, I'm going to use a couple of colors today. About 3 colors is all I'm going to use. I'm going to use Ultramarine Blue Deep, and I'm going to use a little bit of Quinacridone Violet right here, up here on the top, this one right here. And then down at the bottom, I'll use a little bit of burnt sienna down at the bottom. That's about all. The brushes I'm going to use, I'll start out with the flat brushes. This is the 1/2 inch Holbein flat brush. These are synthetic. And this is a 3/4 inch flat brush, Holbein. And this is a number 16 round synthetic brush also. All right, so those are the 3 brushes I'm going to use today. So let me get started. I'm going to mix up a little color here. I'm going to mix up a little bit of Ultramarine Deep, and I'm going to be about a 30% mix. A 30% mix means I've got 30% water with the paint. About 2/3 paint and 1/3 water, about 30%. I don't want it too loose. I don't want it too wet, and I want it just wet enough so it'll run. Okay. Now, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start here with the still life, and you can barely see the outline here, but I'm going to start with the jug up here, the jug, a taller jug up here. All right. And I'm going to start on the outside edge. Now, as I go along, you'll see more and more as I identify where I am. So I'm going to put a little bit of color on this side. So I'm putting the shadow side of the item here on the left side. The left side. This is the shadow side. So I'm painting shadows now on the form. And I think as I go along, this will make a little more sense to you as I get started, as I finish up here. Okay, then I'm going to just take plain water with the round brush, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put that water right up next to that color I just put on the paper. And I want it to run. So I'm going to introduce the water right here to the edge. So I'm building a shadow pattern on the left side of this jug. And I'm going to wet the paper all the way across to the other side. Okay, now I'm going to tilt the paper and get it to run. I'm going to tilt the paper so that the paint runs. And tilt it back a little bit. You can see the glistening of the water. It's all wet, so it's going to start. Now I'm going to finish off the edge here, so that there's no. I don't want any hard edges, so I'm going to finish off the water up to the edge of the jug shape, right next to this glass. Okay, so I'm going to tilt just a little bit more. I want the paint to run a little bit away from that. That's building that edge of that particular subject. And I might put a little bit more in there. I'm going to take the paintbrush. I'm going to put a little more paint right here on the edge. And I'm going to straighten that edge up just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to let it run a little bit more. So by tilting the paper, I'm letting the paint kind of flow, letting the watercolor do its thing. The watercolor will flow with the wet. I'm going to tilt it back now because I want the edge to be a little darker. So I'm going to tilt it back, and I'm watching the wetness of the paper here. I'm not going to put the blow dryer on. I want it to dry naturally. So I'm going to just hold it here for a few seconds, maybe a minute. Let it get kind of settled in. And I'm going to hold it up. Now I'm going to hold it up this way. I want all the paint to flow down to the shadow edge. That's going to darken that edge up and give it a real contrast to the edge of the object. And I can tilt it up a little bit more to get the top section maybe a little bit darker. So I'm controlling the flow of the paint by moving the paper around. It's still a little bit damp. The shine's starting to go away, and that's what I'm waiting for. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead. Now I'm going to paint. I'm going to start painting the handle here on the pan. So what I'm going to do is take that's 30% the mixture of paint. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put the shadow side of the handle. Now if you take a look at if you get the picture downloaded and you take a look at the drawing, you'll see the shape I'm trying to paint in here. And so having the picture and the drawing next to you as you see me paint, this will make maybe a little more sense of what I'm doing. But in the meantime, you're going to see the demonstration. Now I'm going to take that just water now. I'm going to put the water now on the other side. I'm going to put water and let it run just like I did on the jug. I'm going to put the water on the outside of the handle. Okay. All right, now I'm going to hold it up there and let it kind of, I want that edge, I want that one side edge to be a little bit darker. So I'm holding it at an angle so that the paint will flow down toward the shadow edge. And I can maneuver the paint a little bit just by moving it around up and down and to the sides. Okay. Now I'm trying to hold it in position. I'm watching you can see the shine on there. It's still wet. So I'm controlling the amount of moisture on there by let it dry. I'll try to let it dry naturally. I don't want to blow dry it. If I put the blow dryer on it, it'll move the paint too much. So I want it to dry naturally. I want to control it by just lifting it up and moving it. Just moving the paper. Okay. All right. I'll watch that as I go on. Now I'm going to move on to the next layer. I'm going to get the bottom of the pan here now. So I'm going to take this paint now. I'm going to go in here at 30, and I'm going to get the edge of this. So the shadow side of this pan is down here. So painting with a flat brush, I get the sharp edges, the flat edges, and I get the sharp edges here, straight edges. I can get the straight edge with a flat brush, just by turning the brush sideways. And I use the corner of the brush to get the edge. Pick up some more paint. And I'll come down here partially down. This is the shadow side of the pan. Okay, I got that. Now I'm going to pick up the water now. Just going to put water in the round brush, and I'm going to wet this portion down here, and come up to the paint and get the water in there. Get that water to get that paint start to flow. And now I'm turning the paper so that it will flow down. Controlling the moisture by moving the paper around. So I'm letting the watercolor do its own thing today. I'm not really trying to paint too much here with the brush, but let the natural properties of the watercolor move with the paint. The paint and the water is flowing together. So now I've got the outside edge of that pan now in the shadow. I'll hold it up here, let it get a little bit drier. And I'll clean off this edge here, get a nice sharp edge over here with a round brush. Okay. And I can make that paint flow either way, wherever I want. If I make it more shadow in toward the edge, I move it back. Continue that flow, move up and down a little bit. Get that edge. Okay. All right, now I can take off. Now I can take a thirsty brush now. Take the round brush and I'll take all the water out, and I can take off some of this. Make this a little bit lighter up here before it starts. It's almost dry, so it can't do that much anymore. Just leave that alone then. Okay, make sure that's dry. Let's see. Well, the shine's almost gone. We leave that alone. Okay. All right, so I'm going to work on the glass now. And this is still a little bit wet here, leave that alone. This is still a little bit wet here, leave that alone. So I can work on this part of the glass. So the glass, again, I get that 30% mixture of paints. And I'm going to work on the inside here. This is the shadow on the inside. This is the most interesting part. I love this one. This is the most interesting shape on the demonstration today. The inside of this glass and the outside. Get this to come around. This is the shadow now coming off the edge of the edge of the glass. And then I'm going to get a little bit of just plain water in the round brush. I'm going to come over and touch that paint so it flows. Okay, let watercolor do its thing. Watercolor works better when you leave it alone. Just let it flow with the paint, flow with the water. So wet this side over here now. Now I'm going to just let it blend it on its own. All I do is move the paper up and down. Now I'm getting the inside of that glass shape now, the shadow side, the inside of that shape, by giving me a graded wash that takes the shape of that inside of that glass, okay? I'll hold it up here now a little bit longer. Now I'm going to pick up, I took water out of this brush, and I'm going to pick up some of the excess moisture now, because you control the water, you put it down, but then you may have to go back, to speed up things here, I'm taking a little bit of the moisture out just by picking it up with a thirsty brush. So take the water out of the brush by hitting a towel or a damp sponge. Now I go back in and I pick up the excess moisture. Okay? Okay, all right, now let's let that one starting to dry. All right, now I got the inside edge of the pan. I can do that. It's pretty dry over there. Let me get that. Let's see. I got to check the moisture. As I move ahead here, I'm trying to make sure the edges are dry. Otherwise, they'll start to blend. So this is the inside of the pan now, coming around this side. And I'm using the flat brush to get the shape. A nice round shape there. Give me the impression of depth. You know, give the dimension on the object. Okay, then I'll take some water on the inside shape here of the pan, and come up next to the paint so it blends. Trying to cover the whole shape so there's any sharp edges anywhere. Okay, all right. Then I'll hold the paper up, and then I got two things. I got the glass to think about and the pan. But basically, they're in the same position, so I can watch them both at the same time and control the water flow. And hopefully they're going to dry about the same time. That's what we hope. Put a little more paint in there. You can always add paint to you as you go. If you want to get a little darker in some section, you can always add a little paint. You can always add a little water, just a touch here and there, to make it flow nice and even. So I'm touching a little bit of that connection. Get the water to flow nice. Keep it nice and wet. Okay, and I can move it back and forth a little bit to get the water to dry out. So I'm kind of rocking the boat here just a little bit. Okay, well, the shapes are coming along. You can see the shape of the pan now. The inside of the pan, the outside of the pan, and you can see the shape of the glass. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about when I do a form. When I do a form shadow, I'm painting the shadow of the form. It gives the depth. It gives the depth of the object. Okay. Okay. I'm not finished with the glass yet. That's dry there. So let's get started with that. Make that glass really come out now. As I say, the glass is the most interesting shape here. So I'm going to come on this edge now, over here, and this will be contrasted with the juggets in the back. So if you'll notice, I've got light against dark and dark against light. That also gives it a very attractive combination. So this little dark section here, because it's in shadow, the direction of light is off to the right, upper right corner coming down, so that light from a lamp or something, or the ceiling in the upper right hand corner, is coming down across this glass and giving us a shadow pattern. And this gives it depth and dimension. Okay. All right, then I'll take a little bit of water here with my round brush and come in here on the bottom here. Now I'm working, it's a little bit tricky here. I got still got some wet paint up here in the top. Usually I would take a lot more time, but for demonstration purposes, this is to show you how it's done. And you can take your time and let the paint dry completely before you go to the next step. Otherwise, the paint will start running together, and you know you want to keep them separated. So now I've got the bottom of that glass flowing there, and I got one more edge I want to put in. So let's go off and try that. Okay. I got the edge down here, the edge of the stem, which will come off of here a little bit. Give that a little shadow from the top of the glass. Will come down on the stem. Okay, and I can take a little bit of water. Always put a little bit of water. That'll loosen up the flow. Give it that contrast. Now it's up here now. I got to watch this edge here now. So what I'll do is I'll bring this back, and I'll pick up a little bit of that. I'll take the moisture out of the brush. I got a damp sponge over here. Just pick it up, and now I'm taking that excess moisture off here to keep that edge nice and clear. Okay. And up here I can work on this edge here, because I'm keeping those edges a little bit clear. I want to keep that differentiation of the colors. Okay. All right. Now there's one more part of the glass that's still warm. We got the bottom of the glass. What we're going to do here now, on the bottom of the glass, is a little shadow down here. As I said, the glass is the most interesting shape on this composition. It's got all these parts to it. But this is what makes it interesting, is the shape, and now the shadows, the shaped shadows. And that's what I'm painting today. I'm painting the shape of the shadows. And then later on, you can always go back and put a color in there if you want to have a color of the jug, or you want to color the pan. Once you get the shadows in there, then you go back in and add the actual color that you want to put on top. And that'll work. So here I'm painting the shadows first, and then you can go back in later and put the actual color of the object on top. And that way the shadows will come through. Okay. All right, now I'm going to dry out this brush one more time. This water is still wet up here. It's really flowing hard, so I'm going to pick off the excess here. I want this to stay relatively clear there. And bring this over here. Get a little more paint on the brush here. This outside edge is darker than over here. It gets a little bit lighter as I come toward the light. Okay. All right. Well, it's still really wet, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to let it dry here now. And then we can work on this. Let's work on this other object over here. Okay, this was a still life. I thought this would be interesting to show how to do a still life with a glass and a jug and maybe some other object. Just pick anything at all to make a nice subject matter out of it. But the idea here was to paint the shadow pattern as the light coming through here, the shadow form shadow of the actual objects, where the jug turns, where the pan has a depth to it, and of course the glass has this dimension, has the inside of the glass, outside of the glass, and so forth. Okay, now we have a natural thing over here. This is the picture I showed of the tree stump. And what I'll start here is the same colors. I'm going to I'm going to introduce a little bit of brown in here, but I'm going to start out with a little bit of Ultramarine Deep, and the light's still coming from this direction up here. So this edge over here is going to be a little bit cooler. It's going to be more in shadow. So I'm going to put some colors over here and shapes, different shapes, because there's grooves and there's contour of this particular subject over here. So I'm putting a little bit of color in here. I'm going to leave some white paper showing. There's nothing wrong with that. The white paper gives you more interest in the design. So I'm going to leave some white paper showing. Then I'm using the I'm using a 1/2 inch flat brush again. Okay. Well, and I'll put some streaks back here, maybe some shadows back here. You know, there's all kinds of grooves in a tree. But the light's coming from here, so the lighter side is going to be over here. The darker side is going to be on the left. Okay. I'm still watching this, still watching the items there to make sure that the flow of paint is not. It's pretty well dried out. It's pretty well dry now. It's still a bit damp, but at least the paint's not moving, so I'm good. All right, now I'm going to pick up a little bit of burnt sienna. And I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to this tree. So the tree is going to have a little bit of color to it. Now if I put the burnt sienna over top of the blue, it's going to give me a darker color, a darker brown. So that'll give me some of the darker edges that I want. And I can also bring out some of the, paint it over some of the white areas, and it'll stand alone as a brown color. There'll be some brown tones. There'll be some white tone. The white tone is the lightest part of the tree. The bark maybe has a white. An old stump like this would have a real gray or light colored, almost white. In fact, the picture I showed you, I think, was pretty gray. It didn't have much texture to it, though. It had a little bit. So I'm making a little more definition here. What I think. So I'm using my imagination here to put in some design. A little bit of imagination on the color trees. So I'm using a little bit of browns, a little bit of blues. Okay. I'm going to let that dry up a little bit. Now over here, I think what I'll do, I'll pick up some more of that blue, and I'll come out here a little bit, just a little bit more in a blue. Now I'll pick up a little bit of that burnt sienna, and maybe it has some knots out here. Maybe some knots on this section over here. Okay. Now I'm going to let that dry, because that's got that's wet now. Now what I'm going to do on the outside of it now, I'm going to give a little contrast. So I'm going to take a burnt sienna and load the brush up. Now I'll change brushes. This is a 3/4 inch brush. I'll use a bigger brush. Take that burnt sienna, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to define the outside edge. So this is where the contrast is going to come from. The contrast will come from this edge here, and against this darker color. So the white color is the lightest area, and I'm using the side of the brush to give me a little rough edge. I want a rough edge, not a smooth edge, but a rougher edge over here. Yeah, because the tree bark has got texture to it, so it's going to have a little bit of edge there. That's a little rough edge, so I use the side of the brush, drag it down, and working on that contour a little bit. Make a little difference there. Okay, now I'm going to wash out the brush. Now take a brush that's got water in it. Now I'm going to take that and drag it along the edge. What that'll do is it'll give me a soft edge. So I want a hard edge against the tree, but then as I move out, I want the edge to be softer, a soft edge out here, out here beyond the tree, over here toward the edge of the paper. So give me a little contrast, okay? Dark against the tree and over there. Okay, I think what I'll do now is take a little gray mixture now. I took the burnt sienna, mixed it in with a Ultramarine Deep. You get like a gray mixture now. And I'm going to go in now and kind of consolidate some of these colors now. So I'm going out kind of integrating the colors now with a little bit of gray on top of everything. Now I'm also watching the contour. Watching the contour here to give it a structure. So the gray now is, and I'm going to leave some whites. I'm not going to cover it all up. So what we're doing today, we're painting shape of the form. This tree is rounded, so I'm giving a darker edge here, and it's going to light over here, so it's going to have a rounded look of a tree trunk. So I have a dark edge over here, and it's going to go into a softer, lighter edge over on the right side, which will give it it'll give the impression of a rounded subject. Now I'm going to put a little bit of water on this, and again that'll smooth that edge off just a little bit. Okay. All right, I'm going to let that dry now. Now I'm going to work a little bit more here. I'm going to do a color on the outside. This is something I've been waiting to do. I'm going to mix up. Let's clean my palettes. I'm through with the blue and through with the burnt sienna. So I'm going to take that off the palette. So clean the palette off up to this point here. That's good enough. And then what I want to do now is I want to clean out my brush. So the brush has just got water in it. And then I'm going to put, I'm going to use my number 16 round. And I'm going to mix up quite a bit of Quinacridone Violet. Quinacridone Violet, that's what I'm going to use. So I'll mix up a nice big puddle here. About 50-50, about 50% water, 50% paint. So it's 50-50. So it's thick, as a thick mixture here. But you'll see why in a minute. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the paper now. I'm going to wet the paper. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go around the objects up here. Just clean water, just white. What I'm going to do is go up to the edge, and I'm going to paint a background in around this object. So I'm going to paint the color on here, but I'm going to start out with a wet on wet technique here, putting in the background. So I'll go up, I'll do part of it here, and I'll continue on, but I'll get started. I'll do a section at a time. I'll do the whole thing, but I'll do a section at a time when I get started here, so okay. All right, so that starts the top section up here. Now I'm going to pick up some of that Quinacridone Violet and start putting it in. And I just put it right into that wet part of the section of the painting. And I'm going to just let that flow right down to the edge of that. I watered it right down to the edge of the objects. So what I can do here now is I'll just pick it up now. Just kind of let it flow. I'll pick it up and let the paint flow right down to the edge of the objects. And the paint will follow the water. If you got the water down there, the paint will go there. Will go down where the water is. So I'm just kind of introducing that painting down here. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and put in some more paint now. So in order to control this flow of paint, I controlled the water flow. I put down the water. I put down where I wanted the water to go, right next to the edge. Then I went back in with a loaded brush of paint and put it right on top of that water. Now it's going to flow into that section that I want it to. And that will create a background color around this painting, this demonstration. So come in, turn up and down, upside down, turn to the left and right, let it flow a little bit. Okay, let that continue to move. All right, now I'm going to introduce some more water over here. So I got water over here. I'm going to turn the painting around a little bit so I can work on the edges. I'm working on edges now. Just plain water, and you paint the space. This is the negative space area out in the back and behind the object. But you know, most importantly, the negative space, or the space that's around the object, is just as important as the object itself. So you need to think about, when you're painting, is what are you going to do with the negative space? It should have color. It should have value. It also should have its own shape. The shape of its negative value is going to be just as important as the shape of the object itself. And I think you'll see here when I'm finished that the shape of the background will be just as interesting as the subject itself. And that's kind of what I'm demonstrating here, is that both parts work together. The positive shape of the still life and the negative shape of the background. Okay, let that kind of come together. And I chose these colors because they really are contrasty. You can see the purple color, violet color of the Quinacridone really sets off that blue and the white of the still life objects. Okay, now I'm going to finish it off. I got a little more water here. Let's go around the edge of the cup here, or the glass. And all I'm doing is just wetting the paper in the negative, around the negative space here, the open space. And I'll put a little bit here in the background of this section. I may have to go off with a smaller brush in there because it's a small area, so I don't want to touch the objects too closely. So I bring the water right up to the edge, and then I can carefully control the edge with the other brush that I put the paint in. And let's see, I'll take the smaller flat brush. I'll take the smaller flat brush with just water, and I'll go in here to a small section. So I've used the two flat brushes and the large round brush for today's exercise, little exercise demonstration. Okay. Now let me go in here now with the Quinacridone Violet. And this background is still wet, so I can still go in a little bit and play around. I will. When I get finished here, I'll go back and clean up some of the edges. But right now I want to get in the major color. So I just go ahead and paint on around, get the major sections in. Then I can go back in later, a little bit later at the end here, and clean up the edges. So while this is still nice and wet is when the paint's going to flow nicely. So that's why you want to get in there and get the paint started. And you know, watercolor, you can always go back and you can make a lot of changes in watercolor. People are surprised. It's not to controlling the water, is control the water moisture in the brush, but you can also control the how fast it dries. You can also take out some water with a thirsty brush. And add more water to it. So there's a lot of things you can do to control the amount of paint and the amount of water in the brush and on the paper. Okay. All right, now I'm going to go around and clean up some of the edges a little bit. So I'm going to take the round brush with some paint on it. And I'm going to go around very carefully now. Go in and just clean up the edges a little bit to make them a little bit. And I can leave some white. I don't mind leaving white edges in some places. It gives a little more character, I think. To have a little highlight. Maybe the edge of the glass looks like it's maybe the edge of this glass here will be shiny. Show the rim of the glass as an edge. And this section up here I can make it a little bit sharper here with the round brush. And another thing about it is that, you know, you don't want it to look like a photograph, so you want it to look like a painting. So a little bit of irregularities, a little rough edge, a little rough paintbrush, a little brush work on something. It can look like it's handmade. It shouldn't look like it was taken a picture of. It should be something that looks like it was painted. So that's the other thing we work on, is not to make it so tight that it's not more, I would say, handmade. Make it handmade rather than made by a machine or a printer or something like that. Make it look like it's handmade. That's my objectives. I'm just carefully going around. Make it look a little better on the edges. Make them look a little sharper. This edge here is a little bit ragged, so make it a little bit straighter here. Come into the corner. And we can make this edge here a little bit sharper. Make it look a little more round around the bottom here. Make it a little more believable. And around the edge of the cup or glass. You can call it a cup, call it a glass. And this jug. So I really enjoy painting a still life area. It's different shapes, and I like to set them up and do different designs with different objects. It could be a flowers. It could be a bunch of. Could be a basket. Could be a bowl of fruit. Or it could just be a simple device like this, just a glasses and a glass, a jug. Okay. And I think one more area down here at the bottom. This area down here. You see this background now sets off the light areas. The light areas of the object is now set off by the darker area of the background. So that's another plus for that section. Okay. Well, let me bring it over to. It might have been a little bit out of view there. Okay. All right. Let me take my. Now it's still wet, very wet. I'm not going to dry it yet. Let it dry. Now let's put a little frame around that. You can see here. Might be a little bit too big. I'm going to shut that down. That was a smaller one. I thought I had a smaller one here. This one, no. That's going to have to work. Okay. Well, when something like that happens, what I do is I just extend the bottom. And that's what I'm going to do. I have time to do that, so I'm going to take the bottom here and just bring it on down. That way it'll fit the frame. I could either I can crop it, I can make a different framework for it. And I didn't make the frame up to fit the painting. It's usually I take the frame to make it fit the objects. Okay. Now come up here and put this on. There, that looks better. All right. Pop. Let me straighten it up. Okay. So that's the still life segment there, showing the shadow pattern, the form shadows of the objects. And this one over here, it's almost done. Don't want to spend too much more time on this one. But the idea here, I'll put a little more blue. I want that blue side to be a little bit more prominent. So the shadow side should be a little bit darker because it's in shadow over here. So add a little more darks, on this side over here. So put a little more. I'm adding a little more blue to the painting. A little blue, more blue in this section over here. Now I can take that water, kind of blend it out a little bit. And I'll take just a damp brush, and I want to smooth this out. This is the section that's rounded over here, so I want this to be smoother. The edges will be rough because they're the edges of they're the contour of the shape, so they can be rough. This section here will be rounded. Okay. So that was the rounded section of an old log right there. Like that. Okay, and if I put a frame around that, which I'm not going to worry about painting the rest of it, there'll be a frame on that one. Okay, I did an earlier one, which I'll show you also very quickly. I did another one with the same setup. This was a still life I did, and I put a frame around that, so it basically came out the same way. Okay. You can see the shadow pattern, the light coming from above, coming down this way. There's a shadow on the glass, the pan, and the jug. Okay, let's take it to the main camera. And let's see, main camera. Okay, well that was a good exercise on painting the shape of the shadows and the form, and I think that's very important in a painting, is getting that form factor of it, the roundness, the shape of it, and the dimension of a particular item. And those still life is a good example, and that's a good exercise to take a still life and then try to paint the still life as you see it, and give it dimension and roundness and square if it's a square item. Okay, well, I enjoyed today's exercise, and I hope you enjoyed that also. And if you have comments or you have questions about that, send them along to this video, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I'll be coming back today give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe. It helps with my rating. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and Facebook and LinkedIn, and give me a thumbs up. It helps with my rating. I appreciate that. And comments and questions, I love those. I like to get back and talk to the viewers, and can help you out. And if you want to paint along, those photographs and the drawing I gave you on my Fun with Watercolors, you can put it on my Facebook page, and I can make some comments, and maybe communicate with some questions you have, and we'll take it from there. So appreciate you watching today, and I'll be back again next week on Thursday at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll be on here this evening at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time for Drawing with Everett. Simply Drawing with Everett. So I'll see you next Thursday, or I'll see you tonight at 7:30 p.m.